Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Focus Gold TV on our Friday edition of Development in Review. My name is Sadiq and I'm your host for today's program. I have with me Dr. Abdul Moise Mutari Tikuma, a lecturer, Department of Environmental and Occupational Health, School of Public Health, UDS. Please, Doc, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. So wherever you are, we are on the Focus Gold TV. Join our discussion on all our social media platforms, and as we give you a very insightful discussion on environmental and public health in Ghana. And I have a very dynamic young lecturer who is very young and very dynamic in the field of environmental health to help me do with the discussion. Please, Doc, you are welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So as the topic suggests, Doc, what pertain to public health sanitation in Ghana?
All right, thank you very much. Environmental health and sanitation is part of public health. And then we know that public health looks at factors that influence people's health. And it's a very, very broad area, and environmental health is just part of it. And for environmental health, it looks at factors of the environment that can influence human health. Factors including the air we breathe, the water we drink, even the housing we stay in, the houses we stay in are all factors. So we usually define the environment as anything that surrounds us. And so your house, your room, whatever is in it, your environment is all part of it. And they influence you in one way or the other in your health. So that's basically what environmental health is. And sanitation, including waste management, is part of our environment. So that's why we broaden it into environmental health and sanitation.
Okay. So when you look at environmental health and sanitation, we are as a country with a lot of policy projects and initiatives. Basically looking at Ghana's position on this, what would be your comment?
Well, I would say that Ghana is doing very well in some aspects of environmental health, but doing woefully inadequate in other aspects. For instance, in terms of environmental health, we have what we call WASH, that is water, sanitation and hygiene. WASH stands for water, sanitation and hygiene. And in the aspect of water, Ghana is doing very, very well and then achieving a lot of targets. I think the last time I checked, generally we are doing about 88% in terms of water coverage in Ghana. And then for sanitation, we are doing just between 16 and 19% sanitation coverage.
There is a saying that water play major role in sanitation. So if we are doing well in water, why are we lacking behind in sanitation? What is the gap?
The fact is, water is something we can see and talk about.
Okay.
And it's also something that we can easily make propaganda with. Okay. They say water is life, and so if you're able to provide water for people, the impact is so much. So, and our politicians, one way of determining whether an MP or a minister or a DC is doing well is how much water he has been able to provide to the people. But in terms of sanitation, it's more of a behavior change drive. And so people don't usually see the tangible nature of sanitation. That's why you see that water is doing well, but environmental health is not doing well, or sanitation is not doing well.
Okay, so you made mention that we are doing well in some aspects, and we are lacking behind. Which are the areas are we lacking behind in terms of public health, sanitation, and then
So we are lacking, as I mentioned, we are lagging behind mostly in areas of sanitation, sanitation coverage, sanitation management, and even sanitation facilities provision. We are lagging well behind other countries in terms of that. So, for instance, in some years back, government policy direction changed in the area of sanitation. There was a policy that said that government will no longer provide sanitation facilities, which is basically toilets for individuals. It will only provide public latrines, like latrines at public places, lorry parks, schools, markets. But to provide latrines and call it community latrine, no. Government policy moved away from that because government also saw that it's something personal. So in your own house, if you are able to mold blocks and build a house, you should provide a toilet facility there. Government doesn't need to come and do that.
Wasn't this a right call?
Yes, it's right, but how we are implementing it is the problem.
Okay.
Because we are supposed to be encouraging people and enforcing the law.
Okay.
One major problem is the enforcement of the law. Because if you want to build your house, the law says that you should seek permission. In fact, if you want to build anything in Ghana, the law says that you should seek for permission before you do that. But how many of us does that?
Your comments reminds me that when you are walking across town, you see some notice. One of my friends one time make a reference that he think this is the only department in Ghana he see their footprint in every issue. You say stop work, provide permit. Okay.
Yes.
So, Doc, when you look at this, there been a time we have a Ministry of Sanitation. Currently, we don't have such. So, how does this impact in our effort as a country in the issue of sanitation and then public health?
Yes, so names matter, but impact matters most. So yes, by merely having the Ministry of Sanitation and not putting in place measures and commitments to achieving your sanitation targets is as good as not having that ministry. So it was a good thing for government to establish a Ministry of Sanitation. That alone showed that government was committed to doing something about sanitation. But as to whether government was just playing lip service or was interested in actually doing it is the issue.
Okay.
Currently, we don't have a ministry called Ministry of Sanitation, but the sanitation aspect is now being handled like previously by the Ministry of Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. As to whether they are also committed to actually achieving their sanitation mandate is one thing to discuss.
I asked this question because when you look at the issue of sanitation, it's very broad. And for it to be under the Ministry of Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, how does it impact on the work of the unit under? Because it's not a ministry, it's now would probably be a department. And when you look at the broad nature and the amount of tax involved, and when you look at such unit in other jurisdictions, being ministry, there are agencies and authorities aside to that. Why is our story different, and what do we need to do as a country in this regard?
So, I would say that the Ministry of Local Government is already a very big ministry. And so putting sanitation as a unit under that ministry alone, for me, was a no-no. Because all the assemblies, about 216 assemblies, are under the Ministry of Local Government. With other agencies, Parks and Gardens, Community Development, they are all under that ministry. And so adding chieftaincy, which we all know, very broad area, religious affairs, and now sanitation, it's clear that sanitation will just be squatting somewhere under the ministry. And the attention it would have gotten if it were a ministry on its own, it wouldn't get it under the Ministry of Local Government. So it's more of commitment, as I mentioned. And I think that if government is truly committed to solving our sanitation problems, even if I'm aware that the president said he was going to run a lean government with few ministers, but yes, few ministers is fine, but the focus and commitment is very important. So my suggestion would be for it to be elevated into an authority. It can be an authority under any ministry. The authority will have its own budget with all the necessary directors and experts, and then they'll be able to achieve their targets.
Okay, so there is this perception when you mention sanitation, a lot of people's minds are focused on waste management, but we have environmental health and sanitation. Would want you to educate the public out there the difference between these two, or the interlinkages between these two.
So environmental health, as I mentioned, is a very broad area. It includes housing, it even includes food. The food we eat, food and meat hygiene is part of environmental health. Water supply, treatment technologies are part of environmental health. Even building construction is part of environmental health. That's why when you apply for permit at the assembly to build your house or anything, the committee that sits to look at your proposal to build your house or your building, the environmental health officer is part of the committee to help advise as to which way you can build your house, and then your house will be what we call a healthful house.
Okay.
So what I would say is that waste management is just an aspect of environmental health and sanitation. And so when you hear sanitation, environmental health and waste management, environmental health is a broad, then sanitation and waste management is under environmental health. It's just a small aspect of it.
I'm interested in the fact that you mentioned food, the food we eat as part of the environmental health. When you look at restaurants, the food vendor system we have here, what is your observation in regards to environmental health? Are we doing something right? Are we doing something wrong? What are some of the advice you will have to the individual out there when you are going out to buy food? At least these are the key observational things you need to have in mind before buying food. Other than that, you probably will be consuming something that is harmful to your health. What would be your key advice in this regard?
The environmental health unit or department is supposed to regulate even food vendors. If you want to start selling food to the general public, you have to go and register. There are a lot of things they will take you through, including screening. They may even have to look at the processes you follow to prepare your food, among others, so that in the end their aim is to ensure that you are selling food that is wholesome to the public. If you go to the abattoir, for instance, before an animal is slaughtered and the meat is sent out, they are there to make sure the animal itself is healthy. The processes of slaughtering, among other things, in the end they certify the meat as meat that is wholesome and can be sold to the public. So my advice is, let's get the systems to work. If environmental health officers are doing their work, the food you will buy will be food that is wholesome. The meat you will buy at the meat shop will be meat that is wholesome, and then we'll all be safe.
And in the absence of this not happening, what are the problems that we are facing as Ghanaians in the context of where our food system is being heavily impacted or affected by the lack of such systems in place?
Yeah, so you would see that every now and then we record food poisoning at food restaurants or job bars. It could be as a result of the fact that even the people who prepare this food are not screened, they are not healthy. And that's one way of spreading diseases. That's one way of spreading diseases. The person preparing the food for the public has to be verified to be healthy before the person can handle food.
Okay.
So outbreak of foodborne illnesses and diseases are there. We don't know whether the person preparing and selling this food to you has diseases that can easily be, communicable diseases. We don't know. You just watch the person's face and the face is nice and you think the food will also be nice.
Okay, so Doc, I'm interested in this free consultancy for myself and the viewers out there. Going to buy food, or if I want to be mindful of what I eat, what are the key things do I need to be observant of? I may not go and see a certificate or anything indicating that this person is certified, but environmental wise, the environment, what are the key things that any lay person like myself, I'm not as an expert as you are, that I'll be as mindful and considerate as to what I consume. So what are the key advice you will have for a lay person like me to be considerate when consuming food outside?
So as much as possible, avoid buying food from uncertified places. Prepare your own food and eat. That's when you'll be sure what you are eating.
Yes, you have it. You have it there, as Doc put it. Doc, before we wrap up this conversation, there is a common factors that we can all agree to when it comes to certain social settings that we have as people and the kind of disasters we suffer. Flooding is one of the major disasters across Ghana that we are all privy to. What has been the impact of flooding in our environmental health system?
A lot. And sometimes when I hear in the media the devastating effects of flooding, I laugh because a lot of people don't even look at the environmental health and sanitation aspects of that, the effect of that occurrence. You see, when flooding occurs, the flood water usually have no direction.
Okay.
Because we don't create drains among other things for the water to flow, it creates its own path.
Okay.
And so a lot of people, due to their attitudes, are also usually engage in open defecation among other things. And so the flood water carries all this. You're either carrying it to your farm,
Okay.
your vegetable farm, or whatever. You're carrying it to your water sources.
Okay.
Because we said a lot of people still don't have access to good drinking water. So if you have a dam in your community, the flood water will carry whatever feces and whatever to the dam. And that's where you go for water. So what will you be drinking? So these are all negative effects of flooding that can lead to Accra. Before now used to record cholera outbreaks almost every year.
Okay.
Nobody linked it to the flooding in Accra.
Sure.
But it could be part. And when it's flooded, cemeteries are included. As I told you, nobody directs the water. The water directs itself.
Okay. As much as we would have loved this conversation to prolong, we are running behind. With time. But I would like to ask one last key question, Doc. If you are going to look through our microphones and camera to make a recommendation to Ghana as a country in terms of our environmental environmental health and sanitation, what would be the key recommendation that you will make that if we actually follow it as a country, perhaps it will help to improve our environmental and sanitation health as a country and also our ranking globally?
So I think we just need government commitment. The previous government tried establishing the National Sanitation Authority, and I was hoping that His Excellency the President John Mahama's government will take it up, because you see, it's a behavior change thing and it doesn't take a short time to achieve. There's a reason why laws and rules are there and they should be enforced.
Okay.
Because human beings are grouped into three. When there are laws or rules, the first group are those who say we won't follow.
Okay.
They've been made that way. It's in their genes. The second group will say we will follow. They don't ask questions, they just follow. And the third group, they will sit on the fence. You see what will happen to those who will not follow.
Then they decide.
Then they decide. So you would see that those who defy the rules and those who are on the fence are majority.
The majority, constitute majority.
So that's why there should be rules to punish those who will not follow,
Okay.
so that the other third group would fall in line. So if you're able to establish the National Sanitation Authority and giving all the resources they need, we'll be back to the olden day system where if you hear environmental health officers are coming, you are checking your environment to be sure that when they come, they will summon you. That's why the name came summon.
Okay.
Sama.
Okay.
When they come, they summon you. They issue you a writ of summon.
Okay.
That's what brought about the name summon.
Okay.
So it's just commitment, and commitment will come with provision of structures and resources, and the work will be done. We tried it with CLTS, that's community-led total sanitation, and it worked.
Okay.
Yes, the government commitment was also lacking. So CLTS is also at a standstill now.
Okay.
So that's a few things I can add.
Okay, so viewers, as you have it on Focus Gold TV, we do not only inspire mind, but we also shape the future conversation and perspective of our development. I want you to join me as I thank our special guest for the insightful conversation that we had with regards to this segment, as I make way for the Dagbani version of this segment to be brought by Madam Maria on the same platform. Follow us and like our content as we bring you this insightful conversation. Until we come your way with the next edition, please stay to our platform. Thank you.
Thank you.